Hello, and welcome to the next of the Vario Insight sessions. Today we'll be talking about customizing your mixed reality experience with the Varjo Lab Tools. And I'm John O'Neill. I'm a solutions architect here at Vario. I work with our clients and our internal development team on solutions related to virtual and mixed reality. And I'm joined with my colleague, Samuli Jaskelainen.
Hi, I'm a software engineer and I work with our software partnership team. And I'm an author of the Vario Lab Tools that we are talking about today.
And just a quick background of who is Vario and what do we do. We are a Finnish manufacturer of virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality headsets. Founded in 2016 and really specialize in enterprise-grade photorealistic mixed reality and virtual reality. We'll be actually talking very much about our video pass-through capabilities and how we blend seamlessly the real and virtual worlds. Our headsets have the highest resolution across 115 degrees field of view, and all of them are integrated with 200 Hertz eye tracking. I would definitely like to call attention down to the Q&A icon at the bottom of your webinar preview screen in Zoom. We would love to have a conversation here at the conclusion of the demonstration. So please submit your questions during this webinar and we'll get to as many as possible. Again, the XR3 is really our latest generation in the flagship enterprise-grade mixed reality headsets that we provide. It features video pass-through at human eye resolution. And we're going to be demonstrating the Vario Lab tools in action using our XR3 device during this webinar.
So what is this Vario Lab tools that we are talking about? So we found that many of our XR3 customers are really excited about all the features in the headset. So we decided to make a tool that makes it easy to access all the different features that we provide for the XR3. And to fix this issue, we created the Vario Lab tools. And as an overview, what this application does, it creates a layer on top of any application you want and masks out parts of that application to do a fusion between real and virtual worlds. So it's all about mixing the real and the virtual when we are dealing with the Vario Lab tools. And to get these lab tools, you go to our developer portal, developer.vario.com, and on the download section, you can find Vario Lab tools. So if you have XR3, you already have access to all of this software that we are currently showing here. You can also find the documentation for the Vario Lab tools from this website. And let's now go through the highlights of the different features that lab tools can do. So first of all, masking. We can create three-dimensional masks that act as portals between real world and the application that you are running with virtual content. You can create restricted masks that are good for example, masking out a yoke or a wheel from real world. You can also combine these restricted masks with the chroma key, and you can enable chroma key from Vario Base, our normal software that comes with the headset. And with this kind of restricted chroma key masks, you can, for example, have a green steering wheel that we will show you later on this session. For extended masks, the use case is usually like some larger part that you want to mask out. So for example, a full cockpit of an airplane that you are running a simulation on, and you just only want to see virtual world outside of the cockpit. When using extended with chroma key, that use case is usually for big chroma key setups and rooms where you have green walls and green floors, but you may not want to have a green ceiling because that is a very difficult thing to achieve. So we can actually extend the chroma area with the virtual mask and then just add a ceiling into a full chroma room. And the reduce with chroma key lastly is a mode where we can have this kind of full chroma key setup, but you can actually make a hole into chroma area to show something that can also be green or the color of the chroma. So for example, if you have television in the room that you would want to show through the headset. And next we are going to show here a couple of examples that we have used. So this is footage from ITSEC last week, where we were showing Vario Lab Tools masking. And in this demonstration, we have masked out a flight panel with a yoke and a throttle. And you can actually see that the yoke itself is a dynamic mask. So these masks can have different anchors, and we have anchored this mask into this little Vario marker. So the mask moves with the steering wheel, so you can always see where you are steering at. And this is the green steering wheel that I was talking about earlier. So if you only have a small area of chroma, not a full chroma room, you can make these small masks that enclose the chroma area, and then everywhere else than within this small rectangle, you will see virtual content, and within this rectangle you would see a real world. But because we apply chroma key to the real world, in the end all you see is actually your hands when driving a little car here. So this is a setup where you can physically feel the controls, but you can perfectly have a digital twin of that and change it to look different color or different size, just keeping the and still keeping the physical parameters in. And chroma key provides extremely nice edge detection for your hands. So you can actually see like a very clear edges on your hands while driving around. So it's a very magical feeling to like really connect with the virtual world like this.
Yeah, I think it builds a tremendous amount to the immersion when you have that seamless integration. And Chroma is just one of the options that many of our clients have been using to really leverage that capability of believability and immersion in a mixed reality to virtual reality environment.
Yes, and Lab Tools is all about combining these different features that we have available and finding a perfect use case for your solution. So that's why we have so many different masking modes that can be used with chroma or just without chroma. Other things that we have at Lab Tools are also camera settings, and we can actually lock in exposure, ISO, white balance values of our headset. So if you have very difficult lighting conditions, like a very dark room, or again a chroma area where you don't want the auto exposure to be pulsating, you can actually lock them in with these tools, and that way you can actually have constant setup of the environment that you is surrounding you.
Yeah, I think the exposure to those values makes a real difference, especially to many of our clients who have struggled with finding exactly the right settings and being able to quickly iterate on those values and tune in to what makes the biggest difference for their actual environment. We can't predict what they're going to be using it, but being able to quickly prototype and experiment with the values as it suits different lighting conditions and different rooms makes an enormous difference.
Exactly. And you can even save presets. So if you have multiple rooms, you can have different presets for the ISO and white balance and exposure. And next, let's look at the last feature that we are providing with Vario Lab Tools, which is access to our video depth testing. So we have LiDAR cameras in the headset, and we can actually get a depth image from the headset. So you can see your hand in front of the virtual content if it's within a range that has been specified with this depth testing. And here you can see like we have a range from 0 to 0.7 meters basically. So you can see your hand here, but I wouldn't be able to see someone else's hand a meter away. And here we have a testimony from one of our customers who's been already busy using Lab Tools for a while.
My name is Gardner Congdon, and I'm the domain director for extended realities for SAIC. I run a team of developers who use video game technologies for things like simulation, or training, or education. And we also do an enormous amount of development for extended reality, so augmented reality, virtual reality, and with Vario, mixed reality.
I'm Marshall Groves. I'm the program manager for SAIC in San Antonio, Texas for Pilot Training Next. and I lead a team of engineers, educators, gamers, and experts to develop ways to make pilot training faster, more efficient, and better.
The demo that we have behind us is a prototype of a C-130 trainer, pilot trainer. So one of the interesting challenges in that space is how you train pilots in a virtual environment when they need to be side by side in a virtual cockpit. Obviously, you could do that with an avatar in virtual reality. You could do it with real folks in augmented reality, but neither of those solutions work particularly well. Augmented reality, you have a much narrower field of view, for example, and pilots obviously are using their peripheral vision. Virtual reality is fantastic, but if we want to train two pilots together and help them understand how they need to coordinate both verbally and non-verbally in the cockpit, we need to use a mixed reality solution.
Mixed reality is probably the most disruptive technology that we're looking at right now with pilot training. The first time I put on a Vario headset, and I'm a pilot with about 25 years of experience, and I didn't put one on until several months ago in San Antonio, working with mixed reality. And what I saw was portals, I saw pass-through, and I saw a level of realism that I hadn't seen in my pilot training career and in my career with SAIC.
By using the Vario XR3, we're able to define some areas of the cockpit that allow us to provide the real view of the real world to either pilot in the cockpit, while at the same time still immersing them in the virtual world. To be able to be immersed in a virtual environment and to look down and see my actual hands and to start imagining what I could do with that in terms of being able to interact with virtual objects, but to also interact with real world objects and get the tactile feedback that I need to create an effective training environment.
As we look in the mixed reality solution, and that's the future, I mean, it's all over the place here, detail is extremely important. Both seeing what the outside environment is, and if you're flying low level, you need to be able to read the ground. If you are in an environment where you're in close formation, it's essential to be able to see the details of the aircraft on the outside, and that's just the outside. The inside also extremely important. And if you're going to move your head around quickly, if you're going to take in a lot of data quickly, which is what pilots do, take in data quickly and process it, what you see visually has got to be completely accurate.
The opportunity to integrate both the real world with the virtual world was something that I think a lot of us developers had sort of fantasized about for a number of years, but never really understood how it could be done, or perhaps even hoped that it would be done in any time soon. It was just really, it was really exciting, and so we're super thrilled to be working with Vario hardware. To move from the XR1 to the XR3 has been, again, another level of excitement, and has opened up new doors for us. Obviously, we're integrating it into what we think is some of the most strategic training that's available on the show floor today.
We continue to enjoy the innovations that Vario is bringing to the table. We can integrate that with other technologies and integrate it with our customers to provide quicker, cheaper, more effective solutions to address the pilot training crisis and just make training in general better.
So now let's go to a live demonstration of the Varjo Lab Tools.
Yeah, and it's fantastic to see what a lot of our clients are using these tools already in production. They really grew from the feedback and use cases that we've been engaged with for years, and a lot of our solutions really emerge from the need of what our clients were asking for, not just innovative, interesting technology that we come up with. And so finding a way to merge that and release products and updates to our base software is really what we're trying to focus on.
So here you can see on the desktop tool software, we have our Vario Analytics window here, so where you can actually see what I see. And then you will be able to see the Vario Lab Tools and the settings that I will be touching there. So first of all, we are going into masking, and we are going to make a small restricted mask. And to create a mask, we can use our immersive editing that is built into the tool. So there are 3 pages of tools on this controller. On the first page, we have mask editing tools where we can actually move around masks and select different masks that we have created. Then we have a second page where we can actually edit and go more deeply into these masks. As all the masks are 3D models, you can grab vertices, delete vertices, fill vertices, do this kind of mesh level operators. And then lastly, we have a page for our little cursor, where you can actually move around the cursor and also change the smoothness of the movement of the cursor. So this way, I could actually reach places where I normally wouldn't be able to reach, or corners that are outside of the tracking area of the lighthouse system that we are using here. But for now, I'll just keep it close to me, and I will mask out this box here, a little cabinet. So to make a new mask, I select the masking page and adding a mask. Then just by clicking a trigger, I can accept that this is the tool I want to use. And then it will ask a question from me like, what is the anchor of this mask? And currently it's showing the middle of the room for an anchor. And that's because the Steam VR room setup here has that as an origin. So you can always anchor these masks into your world without any kind of tracker markers if you want. But lucky for us, we have these markers here. So I can actually select the Vario marker as an origin. And then I can just use this controller to pick up which marker do I want to track. I'll pick the nice big one here because it's taped on and this is not taped, so we can move around. So now that I know that this is what I want, I can see this white line pointing into this anchor. I'll click the trigger again to confirm the selection of my anchor. And now we are in the full mask editing mode and we can start creating this mask. So let me just put down some vertices on the corners of the cabinet. And there are some holes, so I can also fill out with the fill tool these holes like this. So now we have a mask here. You can also just grab these vertices and move them around, or if you make a mistake, you can always delete a vertex and then just make a new one if you didn't want to delete it for real. And this is just a simple mask that I now created here. And we are going to now preview it in the debug mode. So quite often masks are used with flight simulators and other very heavy applications. And you don't want to be constantly loading into a heavy application and loading back to this lighter lab tools. So we can enable this debug preview here. And now if I go to use mode here, I can actually see this mask taken into use. So Lab Tools has two modes always: edit mode, where you actually edit all of these values, and then use mode, where everything gets optimized and taken into actual action. And now as I have a debug mode on, you can see that this cabinet is purple one. And you can see that this mask is moving with the cabinet quite nicely, and that's because there is a flag here in the mask selection. So when we created a new mask, we got a new mask here, and here is a prediction tab. So if we set the prediction off, the mask is not actually moving with the cabinet. But if I set the prediction on, just put it back there. If I set the prediction on, you can see the mask moving with the cabinet itself. And of course, you can see there was a little bit of slowness with that movement. We can actually also anchor things into Steam VR controllers or tracking pucks. So if you need, for example, a soccer ball or something faster, you could use Steam VR technology for the anchoring then. But this was just one way of making mask. What if you have something super complex? this is not a complex mask. Then you could do your mask in your preferred 3D modeling software and import it into Lab Tools. So here, if we go back to the masking section in Vario Lab Tools, you can actually find an import mesh mask button here. And if we press this button, we actually get a list of different meshes that we can import in. And we even can open this folder. And if you have your own 3D models, you can just drag them into this folder and they will appear in this list. And for now, I'll add this little cube in as a new mask. So we will get another mask down here. If I scroll, we have a mask 1, which is this one. And then we have a mask 2, which has now went to World Origo as default. So if I look behind me, you can see there is a huge big block. That's the cube I imported. And problem with this cube now is that the cube's origin in the model file was actually in the center of the cube. And now you can see the cube is underneath the floor. So what we could do, we could just go into the first page here and select mask moving. And I could just grab the mask and move it where I want. So this way you would be easily able to move your own 3D models around after you have imported them. But sometimes you may not have a controller, or you are using a non-Steam VR tracking system. For those cases, we allow also overriding the position of the mask with these offset values here. So what I can do, I can just click here for this Y value, which is going to be an up axle in this application. And if I increase the up axis, you can see that the cube comes up. And in the same way, I could also just spin the cube away here, doing some laps around it. And these are the two ways of making masks with the masking part of the Vario Lab Tools. You can either make them yourself, or you can import a full mask. But then it's important to remember that when we actually go into this use mode, what we are actually doing here is creating a layer in top of another application. And whenever we are running two applications on top of each other, they will have a small performance penalty. And we have built in some optimization tools for the lab tools, so we can make these masks run smoother, because often you don't need to have them with the full quality of the other rendering. So if we go back to this edit mode here with the lab tools and go into the masking subsection, you can actually see there are two optimization options here. So we have a frame skip, where you can select the number of frames you wish to skip, like every other frame, or every 2 frames, or every 3 frames. So this is very good for static masks that do not move around. So for example, if I would mask off the ceiling here, and otherwise this would be a chroma room, that mask would never move. So then I could easily have a frame skip value that is quite high. But if I have moving objects like this cabinet, we want to keep this as low as possible, so they are more responsive when they are moved. And then we have another optimization here, which is a resolution scale. And this, all it does, it reduces the resolution of the mask itself. So if I make it very small, these masks actually have more rough edges around them, because they are rendered with the lower resolution. And if we have that higher, the edges will show more clean edges, because they are rendered with the high resolution. For the mask itself, the behavior doesn't change at all. So quite often you can actually have this slider to be quite low, like 30 to 40 to 50, because the masks quite rarely require the actual human eye resolution rendering that the XR3 otherwise provides. we can live with the lower resolution holes into another applications.
Yeah,
But,
I often think about the collision hull similarity. You know, in 3D modeling, if you're creating a visual object, in this case, a real world object, or masks, think of them similar to generating a collision hole that can wrap, but it doesn't have to be pixel or vertex perfect.
yes. So when you are creating a mask, it's always good to think about the silhouette from different angles, because that's all that matters. The internal geometry that is within a mask is just always a mask. So you can see through it, or the virtual content is shown on it, depending on the masking mode you want to use. And that's all about masking part of the lab tools. We still have a few other sections here, so let's go to camera settings next. So as I earlier explained, we have different camera settings that we can actually set and lock. So if I look up, you can actually see the cameras are adjusting into this bright light. And when I look down, they are adjusting into this bright room. And this is effect that if you're using a chroma key or just want otherwise have a constant lighting in your scene, is not something that you wish. So we can combat that by changing the exposure to be as low as possible, and then changing ISO to be something that works nicely in this room. 400 seems to be a case here. And now, if I look up, you can actually see that the image is not pulsating from bright to dark and dark to bright. And if I get different colors into the room, we can actually still see that the image stays constant and it's not vibrating or pulsating because of changing environment around us.
Yeah, this is one of those areas where we absolutely have had client interaction, really needing an easy solution to tuning in those camera values for their training applications or their environments, and having to go in and make modifications to original source just to find those perfect values when you're in a mixed reality solution. You know, it's one of those time savers where you can now quickly do it in Varjo Lab Tools and tune in the right value, and then potentially export those values back to your IG or continue using the tool on top of your IG.
Yeah. And lastly, we have the video depth testing here, where we can have things show up that are close to the headset, like hands or a keyboard or a table on top of virtual content. First, I will show how this looks on top of these masks we have without it being enabled. So if I go to use mode and I put my hand here, you can see my hand is big. And that's because we are not doing any kind of depth test here that would be infused with the virtual content and this mask. To enable this, we can go to the video depth testing and use a preset called full override. And what the full override does, it doesn't care what is running underneath. It will force Vario system to use this LiDAR and depth sensors. So these settings are pre-made for you, so you don't need to touch this. If you have more exotic use cases, you can actually read more about this from our documentation. What interests us here now are these near and far sliders. And with these sliders, I can easily change how far the effect goes. And for now, I will just put it to like something very small, like let's say 42 centimeters. And now, if I have my hand close to the headset, you should see my hand. And when I pull my hand back, you can actually see it going inside the mask, because we are losing the LiDAR after 40 centimeters at this point. So if I now go to use mode, you can see my hand is far away, it's pink. And now when it's close by, it's not pink. It's quite simple like that. And I can move my hand slowly. And you can see when the hand is going too
too far from the headset, it will be mixed with the virtual content. And when it's close to the headset, it's always on top of the virtual content. And this of course, this applies to everything else than hands. So if I go very close to this actual cabinet, you can actually see the cabinet coming through the mask. And this is very powerful and useful feature when you just need to have hands quickly. And many designers like to use this when they are evaluating, for example, how far can my hands reach from a sitting position of some furniture, or just as a safety feature to have this feature on when you are developing a virtual application, so you don't bump your head into a wall or a coworker. So I use that quite often when I'm being blind in a virtual world otherwise.
I think we've all bumped into things before. Some of the other cases that I've seen in use, especially using the fast adjustments to those ranges, is not only in the hands and arms occlusion, but if you're doing any sort of co-pilot training, getting the optimal distance of someone sitting next to you so you can see them in a mixed reality solution. And beyond that, it goes to virtual reality. Previously, you're kind of guessing at the values, taking measurements, but here you could just quickly iterate, find the right value, tune it in, and then you're set.
Yes, but it's good to keep in mind that our LiDAR has improved accuracy to 1 meter, and after that the accuracy is not as good. But of course, objects after that are also quite large, so like another human instead of hand. So the edge clarity is not such a big deal after 1 meter anyways. So here, last thing that I want to show you from the lab tools is saving and loading. So all of these settings that we do here can be saved and loaded. So if you have, for example, this cabinet, it could be like a steering yoke or some other kind of more complex simulation setup. You could just save it and duplicate into multiple stations. And then you could easily be able to have the same setup of masks everywhere. It's also very good for more complex setups that needs to be run by non-technical people. So you can just save up your masks and camera settings and video depth values to whatever you want, and just instruct people to load the lab tools, load the file they want, and click use. So they can easily run this with another application without having to have full understanding of all of these settings that the more technical parts of the team are setting. And lastly, before I leave, I just want to quickly show that you might have noticed these little question marks. And whenever you click these question marks, you can actually get a full tooltip of that tool. So if you ever forget what something does here, so for example, oh no, I have these 3 modes of masking, how did they work? You can actually just refer into the in-tool documentation for a short snippet of information to remind you how do they work.
Great documentation. I skip reading the docs all the time, so that one's extremely useful for me.
Yeah, and that's concluding the real life demonstration of the lab tools. So let's get back to slides.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's extremely beneficial. I've worked with a number of clients who we've started using the lab tool, initially as a prototyping to quickly iterate and create masks, and then refine the masks because it's not final. You could go in, you can tweak it, you can resize it, you can try multiple masks in conjunction with one marker or one anchor. And then either decide to export those as OBJs, use them natively in your own IG, or keep using the lab tool just because the speed and iteration of implementing these just saves you time, short of having to create your own editor for creating these masks.
So what's going to happen with lab tools in the future? We are constantly keeping updating. This was the 3rd release of lab tools. The first release had the camera settings. Second release had the video depth testing, and now the 3rd release finally had the full masking capability.
And we've already gotten some feedback from the early customers. So we are going to be adding labels for the masks so you can actually rename them. So when you have like 10 masks in the scene, you can still actually know which mask is which when you are editing them. We are going to add mask exporting. So if you have your own solution for masking in your own software, you can actually export the mask you have created in Varjo Lab Tools and use it in your own solution as well. And then we are going to add some shortcuts for ease access of going between use and edit mode. So editing masks in top of already running application will be smoother with that one. And lastly, we are listening you all the time, the users of Varjo and the XR3. What kind of features would you like to see that can elevate the XR3's use into more approachable and more democratized way, so you don't always need to code in everything? We have an internal backlog wishlist feature set that we are constantly prioritizing and adding new features into Lab Tools. So what you are seeing here is just the beginning of this tool starting to grow its legs. After this webinar, you still may have some questions. So I highly recommend just downloading the Lab Tools, playing with it a little bit yourself, reading the tooltips from the application that I showed you, click the little question marks. Then you can also read the documentation of the Vario Lab Tools from our website. We have a full documentation of the tool. And that documentation also includes how to use this controller with small little video files of all the different modes that you can select from all the different pages for tooling of your own mask. I also highly recommend reading the general mixed reality sections of our documentation to fully understand what is fully possible with the XR3. If all that is still something that is still a little bit too puzzling and you can't find solution for your problem, you can contact our developer support and we are happy to help to get you started with Vario Lab Tools. Or if you just have like an awesome solution that you used Vario Lab Tools, we would be happy to hear about us to see how people are using these masks and other great tools from Lab Tools in their own applications. And
yeah,
lastly,
we love those types of things. Please send those. I may include you on a future webinar as well.
Yeah, it makes us more happy to like add more features all the time for the tool here at the office. People love looking at them. And lastly, we have a new blog coming called Vario Lab blog. And I will let you take over from here.
Sure. So Vario Lab blog, yes, this is a new area where we're launching with technical information and actually also welcoming guest posts. And you can submit your email request through lab@vario.com. Definitely look forward to submissions, technical use cases, non-technical, just all around expanding on the community around the use of Vario headsets. And here's the fun part. So I've been actually, I see we have a very large number of fantastic questions that have come through this. So thank you for the demonstration, Simile. I'd love to run through as many of these questions as we have in the remaining time. And just jumping right in, one of the first questions is with regards to when we expect to distribute to South Africa. That's actually probably a great question for sales, and I know in many regions we work with VARs, value-added resellers, so that would be something that our VAR relationship network is most likely going to maintain. If you have more questions, please reach out to sales@vario.com, and they can either directly respond with the best contact or the person or company that will be dealing with that. Next question is with regards to a Unity question in the SDK, if you can quickly switch between the real and virtual worlds. And I believe we have a number of examples in the SDK. There is one function call that will allow you to enable and disable the video pass-through. That's one easy way. There's also a couple of options where you don't necessarily have to turn off the video, but you could create a shader or effect that would modify the mask if you're working in the masking system in Unity. And those are the things definitely we have available through the SDK. And if you have more questions, please reach out on that developer link and we can send you more samples. Similarly, I'll throw this one to you because I'm not going to answer every single one of these, but are there any GPS components built in the XR3? Trick question.
I don't think so, but because you threw this to me, do you have more information?
No, I just want to make sure I'm not answering all of them. No, there's not. However,
Yeah.
I do know there is a client who is using our devices in conjunction with positioning systems. And the way they achieve that is by having a simple mobile phone on the user. And so the GPS position as being basically transmitted. The only issue I believe they ran into was the proxy between an Android-based GPS device and the Windows application running on the host PC. But that's something that can easily be overcome. So natively in our headset, no, we do not have a GPS positioning chip. However, as a solution, there is certainly a number of ways you can implement that if needed. Next question, are there any plans for an updated pass-through camera? I think what you have is great. I agree, it's awesome, but would love to see more clear cameras. So just looking through our history, our first generation and now our next generation device, I think it's logical to assume that we're always looking at advances that improve in the technology, and specifically for clients who have asked for changes or enhancements. And so while I can't specifically say exactly what model and what's being done, I think you can logically assume that there's always research being done into advancements into the next offerings. That's a nice way of saying there's something happening, but I can't tell you what.
We are also very much currently limited by the actual bandwidth of the cable. So even if we put higher resolution cameras into the headset, we wouldn't be able to send the image through back to the computer with the current technology.
Yeah. Heavy reliance on foveated rendering technology, both in VR and mixed reality, and absolutely essential and critical that all of our devices, I think, as we mentioned at the beginning, utilize eye tracking, 200 hertz eye tracking updates. And that's a critical component for a successful foveation solution. Next question, in the case of multi-user, the software, if it's running on a multi-PC network, and if yes, what's the necessary bandwidth and delay between users? I think specifically in regards to a multi-user environment, that's something that's more the factor of the software that you're building. If the question is multi-user, multi-device rendering from a single host, that's not something that we're currently talking about. Certainly, if there's more information you're looking for on the multi-device or multi-headset from a single rendering source, that's something you should reach out to for further discussions on our developer site. All right, Smiley, I'm gonna give you this one again because I can't physically see the computer, but the question is with regards to the computer make and model and the spec that we are demoing on. Yeah,
so I actually, like, we build our own PCs here. We buy the components and our lab builds them. But this is, I think it has some Intel i9, very recent, with the RTX 3090. So we try to get as fast CPU as we want and as fast GPU as you can buy from the current market when you're using, especially XR3, because the mixed reality features are a little bit heavier than just running things in virtual reality. That said, the Varjo Lab tools themselves are not very heavy, so you could run these in top of a lighter demonstration, a lighter application, if you have a situation where your own software does not need this kind of high-end capability and just is fine with the mid-end rendering.
Excellent. Next question is if application developers need to contact or apply directly with us to get software tested and confirmed with the Varjo Lab tools and to make sure it's compatible. So it's interesting. Applications have usually no awareness whatsoever of Varjo Lab tools, and that's kind of by design. So we have clients that are using applications directly from Steam, and they are not aware of the mixed reality option or even integration with Vario. And the lab tool allows you to run independent and agnostic basically to the software. So if there's specific questions, and potentially the use case I would see is if you wanted to use the upcoming export features from our tool or any of the settings that come out. Currently, they're JSON formatted, and then subsequently the object OBJ format for export is a standard format that applications should be able to integrate. Similarly, any other thoughts about that one?
Not really. I think the green steering wheel demonstration is quite good because we are just running it on like stock Steam racing simulator. Like they definitely do not know anything about Vario doing these things on top of it.
But they're impressed even if they don't know about it. If they saw it in use.
Yes.
Another question, does the masking process have to be used with a Vibe controller, or is there a hand track solution?
Unfortunately, we currently, if you want to create a mask manually, you need to use the Vibe controller. But as I said, you can also import your own mask if you create the 3D model with the other kind of 3D software. So no, unfortunately, we do not have like hand-tracked painting or some kind of like face-track painting for the actual construction of the 3D model.
Will this work with inside-out tracking, or do we need to be very careful about not moving lighthouses?
It will work like with any tracking methods. So you don't necessarily have to use the Steam VR, but as said previously, you will lose the ability to create the 3D model yourself. But if you're just importing pre-made 3D models and using the offset values, you can use it with whatever tracking method you want with Vario. Excellent.
Next question with regards to flight simulators, what are the recommended hardware requirements? So that's something that it's always interesting. If you look at our published minimum and recommended specs that we have on the website, that's really, a general approach to as much as we know about software that's running that we don't have access to. But it's going to be very specific to your needs. So if you're a heavy visual system, ultra realistic graphics, GPU bound operation, you're going to need a very powerful GPU. If you're doing a tremendous amount of processing and simulation, high-end CPU. So it's really going to be relative to your use case. It's the kind of thing that we can certainly go into more depth, and I would highly recommend you get in contact with us, that development support link, so we can learn a bit more about what you're doing and kind of have a discussion very specific to that. It's not a quick, this one is the answer. That's something that we typically will engage with directly and give you a better idea when we understand your needs. Okay, can the masks be turned on and off? In a simulator use case, different views would necessitate turning off the mask.
That's currently not possible without actually shutting off the Lab Tools software. Of course, you can always go to edit mode, but then you will still see like all the editing interface. So if turning masks on and off is a feature that you actually have a real use case for, send us an email about your use case and we can discuss about it. And I'd be happy to add that to the wishlisted features into our backlog and try to prioritize it into the following releases.
Is it possible to import a more complex mesh model? And I'll actually combine that with a subsequent question with regards to polygon limit on the masks themselves.
Yeah, so currently we support OBJ importing, and it only imports the first mesh of the OBJ file. So you are limited to it's about 65,000 vertices. If you need something more complex, I highly recommend trying to reduce the poly count, because all that matters is actually the silhouette of the mask. So if you have a super highly complex 3D model here,
as a mask, it's most likely a waste of resources usage. But that said, if you really need to go above that vertex limitation, you can split the 3D model into multiple parts, and you can anchor all of those masks into a same anchor. So you could have like half of the mask as a one import and half of the mask as an another import, and they can share an anchor and have same offset. So then you would have exceeded the poly count limit of a single mask.
With regards to the predicted movement on the box, on the mesh, the question is, would it not be better to make the mask slightly larger?
That's basically like a preference. So if you would like them to be a little bit larger, you can have them a little bit larger. But we usually want to keep the masks quite tight, so it looks more natural when you are combining the real world with the virtual world. But totally, you could make them a little bit larger. But as said, if you have something that requires more accuracy for fast-moving objects, I highly recommend using a SteamVR tracked objects like a SteamVR pucks, like the Vive pucks or Vive controllers as anchors, as those can move faster than the predicted Vario markers.
Is there a way to make the mask where none of the mask area is the video pass-through and it's actually the virtual reality area?
Yeah, so that's why we have the both modes, restricted and extended, and they are basically the two sides of the same coin. So with the restricted mode, all you see in the mask is real world, and with extended mode, all you see in the mask is VR, and then you see real world elsewhere. So they are basically inversions of the same thing.
And with regards to mask resolution, have we measured if there's an impact to GPU performance?
Yes, and also VRAM usage, as you are adding one more layering for the Vario stack rendering. So it has some like a hit for both GPU and the VRAM usage. So that's why we recommend pulling just the slider down, as most of the time the resolution of the mask is still good enough.
Excellent, excellent. I think we've had a couple of questions specifically about that, so that's good to hit. Can we import 3D models rather than a cube?
Yes, so you can open the folder for the 3D models from the Varjo Lab Tools, and you can drag in your own OBJ files, and then they will appear in Varjo Lab Tools as an import option.
Great. And another question about future headset design for professional flight simulation applications, if we have a plan to widen our field of view. Again, speculative towards future versions, nothing that we can expose at this time. Again, if there's very specific needs and a demand for these features, that's something that please directly get in touch. And if it's something that's time sensitive, we can certainly get under NDA and discuss more in detail. Have we tested the device in assistive surgery? I haven't personally. I'm not a surgeon, but we do have an application called Touch of Life Technologies, one of the partners that we work with, and they've actually created an application that uses mixed reality and is extremely detailed anatomy design. I don't know about specifics beyond a number of those cases, but again, please get in touch. I can coordinate with our sales team and see if they have any that they can speak to. If we can confirm that the Varjo Labs tool product is capable of placing masks on top of any application without regard to third-party support, as in Prepared, Blue IG, anything on SteamVR, easy answer is yes, we can confirm that because we've actually done that, and our clients are doing that right now. So we are the Vario Lab tool is agnostic to other applications that are running with it. I think we touched on this one, masking in reverse, flipping the virtual to real or virtual inside the mask and then outside the mask. So
yeah, that's just the restricted and extended modes. You can reverse how the mask behaves.
Yeah, that's a fun one to try. And is our depth functionality available on the Vario Auro? Arrow, sorry. No, you need the mixed reality video see-through in order to use these functions. Now, depth sensing functionality is more something that we use with our ultraleap hand tracking, and that is not available on the Arrow. There's someone here who's having problems with depth occlusion not working with masks in use mode. No other details to that. That's something definitely, please get in touch with your specific use case, and we can help you step through. I don't think there's anything that comes off the top of the mind with depth occlusion being exclusive from masks. We actually had it running just a minute ago, showing the hands passing through. With regards to the pilot and co-pilot situation, do we mean that the LiDAR can mask everything else but not the cockpit, who are constantly moving without using a green screen? So LiDAR is not going to be independent. It's not going to sense a human as opposed to a device. It's all going to be based on distance. So any value that you set, anything within that range, just like in the demonstration, similarly we're showing, hands or moving close enough and actually seeing the filing cabinet. So a person won't be distinguished from a filing cabinet. So oftentimes, if you're looking for that kind of a solution where you potentially are masking some elements, but having virtual reality with others, that's where you do still want to have the green screen option. So you can mix the virtual reality seamlessly with a human situated next to you. Another great situation, please get in touch through our developer support link, and we can talk about more specifics of how to set that up. Next question is with regards to the markers, in this case referred to as a QR code. Where's the QR code set for positioning? Every time I import a model, I have to adjust the position to match the real model. Can I automatically locate the model to the model in the real world according to the QR code?
So when you are using the Vario Lab Tools and you are importing a new model, you can change the anchor of the model to be in that QR code or the Vario tracker, and then you can just offset it from the Vario tracker. So please make sure that you are actually putting the imported objects into a Vario tracker and not just into the room Origo. Otherwise, they won't move with the trackers. If I understood the question correctly here.
Yeah. And again, if any of these questions have any answers that we're going through, or if we don't get to them, please reach out. I know we have a very long list and only a couple of minutes left, so I will try to get to as many as possible. There was a question, markers are not necessary. You don't have to use a marker to anchor for these masks. You can anchor to the center location or to the headset or to controllers. Great comment from one of our current clients with regards to loving the tool. Great to hear. Thank you for the feedback. Do we have any plans for mixing masking types? So restricted with restricted chroma?
Unfortunately, currently, all the masks will use the same masking type. We have heard this request from another partners as read earlier. So we are investigating, is this technically possible to do with the Vario Lab Tools? So the good and the bad thing about Vario Lab Tools is that it's using our public API. So anything that Vario Lab Tools, you can also integrate natively into your own applications. So we don't want to use anything that is not publicly available within Vario Lab Tools. So that limits a little bit of the use case in this kind of like very mixed situations where you wanna do like very advanced things with the tool, as we wanna keep it simple and easy to access for most people. But yes, we are investigating if there is a possibility to bring that into Lab Tools. I personally would love to have it there, but there are no set plans yet.
And fantastic questions. I really appreciate the level of engagement that everyone has had. And unfortunately, we are out of time. But please, if you've posted a question and we haven't gotten to it, please reach out, say hello, or go directly to our website. Here's information about those links. And thank you so much for your attention and interest. We look forward to hearing how you use Vario Lab Tools in your production. Thank you.
Thank you.